Good morning, everybody. Welcome. This is our first Cultivating Victory episode in the new year. It's 2018. I'm here with Glenn Schultz from Schultz Family Farms.
Hi, Mary.
I'm Glenn. And our guest today is a very dear friend of mine, Andree Clearwater out of Gill, Massachusetts. I met Andree right after I started dealing with the nutrition end of microbes and microbiomes and so forth. And as I was looking for nutritional supplements and approaches that would help people with microbiome restoration, I fell into this whole line of direct marketing nutrition businesses, and this led me to Andree, who has been fighting the fight for many years. She has worked in Gill, Massachusetts, and lived there most of her life. She's primarily an artist and a store manager, and has done different kinds of retail management. She manages an art gallery right now. So Andree, welcome. And if you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing a little bit about your journey towards good health and nutrition.
Thank you, Mary. And thank you, Glenn, for being on the call here. So it just dawned on me that I grew up eating white Wonder Bread and with butter and sugar. Those were our snack. That was just standard fare. I was chubby as a little kid, and then when I got to high school, I lost the weight, but I got very, very interested in like trying to lose weight and trying to, be slim, and went through all sorts of fad diets and just extreme measures to be thin. And then when I was pregnant with my son, they had me load up on carbs for this hypoglycemia test. So I did, and it got me totally hooked on ice cream. I mean, I obviously was eating the wrong carbs, but then I couldn't stop. And so for the last couple of months of my pregnancy, I was just eating sugar nonstop. And so when my son was born, he was like 8 pounds, 10 ounces, very healthy boy, but he quickly became obese. And I had to, I took him to the pediatrician. I didn't have to pay for his bills because he was obese. After 6 months, I could not lose my pre-pregnancy weight. I was just still eating all this sugar. And I finally went into Overeaters Anonymous, where I stayed for about 5 years. And I immediately lost the weight. I got my abstinence. I was off of flour and sugar. And I did really, really well. So over the years, I let some sugar and flour creep back in my life. I didn't stay as strict as I had been, but on the whole, I've been able to maintain a pretty healthy lifestyle. I really try to eat as well as I can. Along the road, I became interested in the kind of foods that we're putting in our body and the kind of soil that's out there. And I, in the 90s, got involved in a citizens group to keep a major retailer from coming into a town in my area. And it actually made international news. I had another friend that was living in Alaska, and on the BBC, she heard that our little town of Greenfield, Massachusetts, actually kept this big box retailer out. So that was a big victory for us. And then right after that, another citizens group was trying to keep Roundup off the Massachusetts State Highway. So I joined this group, and we sent out a bunch of letters, and we just drummed up a lot of support, and we were successful in eliminating this major herbicide, which was very toxic and harmful to a lot of people. Since then, I haven't done so much politically active. I mean, I will sign petitions. I work one-on-one with a lot of people. I take a product that I sell now to farmers markets, and so I'm dealing with farmers markets a lot in the summertime, and I make an effort to buy organically there whenever I can. And so it concerns me when I know that food isn't organically grown. I just don't buy it. And when I go to the supermarkets, I'm really encouraged to see that even large chains are have a huge organic produce section out. I think that's very good. Back in the 90s, I belonged to the food co-ops, and I still belong to several food co-ops. But if I'm in a rush, I will go into a big regular chain and buy, and the quality seems to be getting better and better, and that's good. So I've had my own gardens in the past, all organically grown, to my knowledge. And now I'm in a position where I don't have a garden, but I want to do some container gardening. And I'm spending a lot of time in Vermont, and we have a deck. There's a lot of trees around, so I'm not sure how much we can grow, but I'm interested in putting some soil revitalizer into the pots so that I can get the best plants that I can grow myself. And I think it's empowering to think that I can grow my own food again. It's been a long time since I've had a garden, and I'm really looking forward to doing that and sharing what I'm going to be learning with my friends who are the farmers at the farmers markets.
Let me ask you a question on the sugar and flour diet. You hit on a subject that I think people could maybe understand a little bit better. Gram for gram, flour or maybe bread, bread has more glycemic raising capability than just a teaspoon of sugar. So, for a gram of sugar, processed sugar, and a gram of bread, bread will raise your insulin levels higher. And did you find that out going through that Eaters Anonymous? Thank you for sharing that.
They didn't get into so much of the scientific reasons why you lose weight. It was just basically making a decision to put down the harmful food and just put down the flour and sugar. They didn't get into the glycemic indices of anything. But I think that that's a point well taken. However, I still think sugar is like putting sand in your gas tank of your car. So even though the glycemic index may not be quite as high, it's still very, very harmful and causes inflammation in the body. And if I could just remember that every time I'm tempted to put, some delicious looking thing in my mouth when I'm at a party or whatever, then if I just remember, if I eat this, I'm going to feel some inflammation somewhere in my body, then maybe I won't eat it. I don't know how that can happen, but that's my hope.
So what do you do now for, this has always been holidays. Oh my gosh, what do you do? And so you gathering with people, and there's always all kinds of sugar around. How do you say no, or how do you get around that?
Well, last night I didn't say no, and so today I'm feeling the repercussions of that. But there have been times when I have been able to say no, when for me, I have to sort of make a decision. I'm just not going to have it no matter what. And because sugar is so addictive, the second you put it in your body, then you just crave more. So the trick is to sort of reach a point where you just don't have it. And the same goes for flour too, because I think flour is addictive as well. There's someone out there called Bright Line Eating, and that's what she does. She just says no, she's never going to have it. And I haven't been able to reach the point where committing to doing something as extreme as that. But people who do it have great success, and they just say no.
And something I've noticed over the last year or so is I certainly have been surrounded for years by people who had no interest in changing their diet. And so I always saw myself as the one who's always craving sugar, and I don't have enough willpower, and on and on. And about a year ago, I read I think it's a Jim Rohn statement about you will become the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I realized I need to just surround myself with people who are interested in health and nutrition. And I think one of the things I enjoyed about spending time with Andree last summer, I was up in Massachusetts, and almost everybody she introduced me to was eating healthy food or serving healthy food. And I thought, wow, it would be easy to live up here and eat healthy all the time. And I think one benefit of what we're doing with these calls here, what we're doing with our Cultivating Victory series, is just kind of opening up that dialogue so people start talking about some of these ideas, because we pick up our eating habits from the people around us. And because we eat daily, it's something you take for granted. I mean, I grew up, I tell people my mother was more Catholic than the Pope, but every day we would say the prayer, give us this day our daily bread. And so I almost thought bread, white bread, was something kind of sacred. And I realize now, oh my gosh, it's full of starches that are causing health problems. Maybe there was a time when whole grain, naturally grown bread had some health benefits, but we're certainly not there with the bread we're buying off the shelf at the supermarket.
Well, there's that verse in the Bible where I forget the exact story, but there were, was it Daniel in the lion's den or something, where there were these men that they weren't eating what all the Babylonians would ever eating. They weren't eating the flour and the sugar, all the carbs, and so these people that were just eating fruits and vegetables were totally healthy.
So I guess another idea that crossed my mind as you were talking, Andree, was the bit about your timing and your effort to keep a major retailer out of the area. Because there's a community here in New Mexico, the village of Taos, or the Pueblo of Taos, that has done the same thing. And I just wonder if one was influenced by the other or who came first. There aren't a lot of towns that do this. But what were some of the reasons that you did not want the major retailer in your town?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. First of all, they were going to destroy some Native American sacred land. It had been a shad and salmon fishing outpost like 10,000 years ago, and for many, many, centuries. And they wanted to dynamite 28 feet off the ridge of land right next to the Connecticut River. And then when a big retailer comes in, they tend to put smaller businesses in town out of business. Then you don't have the small town businesses supporting the community. A lot of the tax dollars from the big retailers the profits go out of town. And then there were a lot of child labor and slave labor issues around the whole thing, and quality of merchandise, changing traffic patterns, a myriad of things. But somehow in the middle of that, my thought processes sort of went to beyond the repercussions of a big retailer coming in and changing traffic patterns and demographics. But it did boil down to basics, like what we're putting into not only our landscapes, but our bodies. I actually got death threats. I had death threats when I was doing the organizational work I was doing around that. And it was so threatening to some people that I'd be doing work like that. But why was it so threatening? Maybe because some people were going to lose money. People that wanted to sell the land were going to lose their deal. I don't know. But it was around that time that I really started thinking about what we're putting into our bodies too, and the sugar. And I'm trying to think of how that really connected with me. But there were also a lot of nuclear power plants in the area too. And I was just thinking about what do I want to live next to, and what do I want to have around me? What do I want to put in my body? So it was all sort of interconnected. It was a bioregionalism meeting that actually started the whole thing going in my mind. I raised my hand in that meeting and I said, well, how does anyone feel about this big box retailer coming into our area? And people said, yeah, well, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. And then someone said, well, someone ought to start a petition. And I ended up raising my hand because I had been a shopping mall manager, and I knew firsthand the impact of development on farmland. I had managed a place called, well, it was a place where this shopping mall actually it obscured the view of the mountains. And it sort of took over the fields where it had been, where it had formerly been farmland. So the name of the mall was Mountain Farms Mall, and it was like the opposite of what the name was. So because I'd had this experience as a mall manager, I seemed to be the likely one to start this petition. The reason why I was at this bioregionalism meeting was because I was a member of our local food co-op. And so I was friends with a lot of people that were into nutritious food. And part of that was like trying to eat locally, grow locally and eat local. And so the bioregionalism meeting was a part of that. And so then the whole thing of trying to keep the big box retailer came out of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so food was actually the beginning of it. Nutritious food.
Another interesting point that hits me as you say that is thinking way back to mid 80s, in the middle of the farm crisis. I was a college student, and I remember in agricultural economics, we've had lots of discussions about the fact that if we want to save these family farms, we need to start buying more directly from direct market outlets. We need to avoid or minimize the role of these middlemen. And 20 years later, when I look back at that, I realized, gosh, we didn't minimize it at all. We've increased the role of the middlemen. Most of us are buying from outlets that have, our food has gone through so many steps of storage, shipping, processing, reprocessing, and then distribution that that we have built the role of middlemen at the expense of farmlands, local communities, and local and the health of the individual.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. At the farmers markets, people stand in line to get the fresh produce. I mean, there are lines, and the best growers, the ones with the longest lines, are the organic growers too. And the food is just fabulous. It's beautiful. It's delicious. It's just amazing. I mean, I have been at the point where I actually couldn't cut into this incredible, it was a purple cabbage. I couldn't cut into it because it was so beautiful. And then it ended up rotting a few days later. It sort of like turned brown. But I actually found myself thinking I could become a breatharian because I don't want to eat this beautiful food. This is a living thing. I know it's an extreme position, but when you have food that's actually beautiful, it's amazing. And when you get food from the supermarket, it's not often beautiful the way it is when it's fresh grown.
Let me jump in there. When you do have access to good food, there's a spiritual connection to that. And you almost, even if you're eating animal, like I raise animals on the farm, and I get asked, how could you do that? And I'll tell you, it's a little tough, but just trying to justify that. However, you have to bless the nourishment and the life-giving forces that animal provided you, and same with that head of cabbage. Quite honestly, it's all connected, and it's part of the process. And eventually we return back to the decomposers and are eaten by the little microbes that Mary likes to study under her microscope so well. So it's a cycle.
I had one thought I just wanted to share that I feel interesting. So my great-grandfather was a candy salesman in Somerville, Massachusetts. And my father told me he used to sneak into his candy closet and sneak candy. And isn't it interesting that great-grandfather died of stomach cancer and his wife died of stomach cancer? And then my grandmother and my great aunts, who were intimately connected with his great-grandfather and whatever, they had stomach issues their whole lives. One great aunt had to have some colon removed. My aunt had colon cancer and had to have some colon removed. My father died of pancreatic cancer. My grandfather had diabetes. So look at all of these health diseases that my family has had in just direct relation to sugar. So I think it's no wonder that I am really trying to change that, like stop that pattern in my family.
And how has that worked? Does your son eat pretty healthy?
He tries, but I know he's had challenges just because, of what I laid on him in the beginning, when I was nursing him and what got put into his body. So his weight fluctuates. He knows what he needs to do. We all know what we need to do. Just, because of the addictive nature of sugar and flour, it's just really hard to stick to that sometimes. But I think if we can put more focus on just how beautiful the food is and just put the focus on getting the good food and maybe less focus on trying to keep away from the bad food, maybe maybe that is a partial answer or something that could help.
Well, Andre, you've hit on so many key issues here today. I really want to thank you for coming out. We are almost out of time, and I keep wanting to ask more questions, but I'm going to stop the recording here.